Good evening and welcome to the Oregon Board of Education regular meeting at Clay High School. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Moment of silence this evening is for Caroline Wood. She was a kindergarten teacher she started at Wynn, and then she went to Clay. When Clay closed, she went to Star. And her husband was Henry Wood, principal. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the roll call, please, Mrs. Schroeder.
Yeah, Mrs. Cathers.
Here.
Mr. Shea.
Here.
Mrs. Molnar.
Here.
Mr. Savick.
Here.
And Mr. Zavisky.
Here.
Please silence all personal electronic devices during the meeting. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as written, plus the addendum to the consent agenda, B1B and B4A. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Mr. Savick.
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky.
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers.
Yes.
And Mrs. Molnar.
Yes.
Good.
Gregory?
Yes, so I'd like to invite Marty Rothy. If you just want to come up to the microphone here, and Mrs. Molnar here has completed an award. It's called the Star Award, and Marty will talk a little bit about it, but it's a series of events and tasks that Carol had to complete, and actually the board, hopefully tonight, will support the final R, which is the resolution and an acknowledgement of her hard work, which is one of our motions tonight. But we'll get to that here. But thank you for driving up and joining us this summer. We appreciate it, and we're proud of Carol. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Actually, I'm here for another award too for Caroline.
Yeah.
And before I get into that, I did leave, or Mr. Halbrook left on your seats.
Yep.
Just a couple things that I would like to highlight. If you don't remember, I'm the Northwest Region Manager of the Ohio School Boards Association, and I would like to invite you, if you are available, we have a free legislative open house that is going to be held on August 23rd at the Sandusky Yacht Club. This is in partnership with the Northeast region, so we're inviting school board members from both of our regions. And we are bringing up Jennifer Hogue, who's the the Director of Legislative Services, actually, at the Ohio School Boards Association, to give an update on what's happening in Columbus. If you've kept abreast of anything that's been going on, there's a lot that's been happening in Columbus, and it's an opportunity to bring our regional school boards up to speed on what's going on, the timing of what's going on, and that type of thing. So I invite you to that. If you would like to come at 6 o'clock, there's a buffet dinner. I've included the reservation email there if you'd like to come. The program itself starts at 7. The dinner's from 6 to 7. I'd also like to remind you of our fall conference, which will be at Fostoria High School on October 26th from 5:30 to 8:30. And then, of course, our Capitol Conference in November in Columbus. There's just a little bit of information about our region, and also kind of a capsule of our regional awards. And a lot of our regional awards are presented at our fall conference and our spring conference. So if there is anyone in your district that you feel the Humanitarian Award or the Excellence Award for Outstanding Leadership, the Community Service Award, those types of awards are awarded at our fall conference. So If you would like to nominate anybody, the link is at the top of the page, and those nominations are due September 1st. I will also be reaching out to your high school guidance counselor to promote our, what we call Bonnie Eddy Educational Book Grant Award. Those are $500 awards that we offer to any student going into education. And that's open to any of the students in our 20-county area in the Northwest region. And that deadline is December 1st. So, saying all that, I would like to, first of all, present Carol Ann Molnar with an award that was supposed to be presented to her in November at the Capitol Conference, but unfortunately, she was unable to make it. I would just like to say this about Carol Ann. I have been in this position for almost 2 years. And Carol Ann was president of our region when I came in, and she was an amazing mentor, not just to me, but she has served on the Northwest Region Executive Committee. She was the president of the Executive Committee. She's been our past president. She served on the Ohio School Boards Association Board of Trustees, and in 2022 was a member of the Executive Committee. And then that Executive Committee is made up of one member from each of our 5 regions, and the president-elect, the past president, and the current president of the Ohio School Boards Association. So this is your award from 2022 for representing our Northwest region as a member of the OSBA Executive Committee. So I'm going to bring this over to you.
Thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure to serve with you. We're very proud of what you've done with our Northwest District. You're fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind. Now, after all that, I'm going to talk about the Star Award because Carol Ann is also eligible to that. So the Star Award is an award presented to school board members all over the state who have completed 4 components. The S stands for service, and that is an accumulation of 200 points for different types of service that they have done for their local and state and region school boards. The T stands for training, which means the school board member has taken advantage of OSBA training opportunities, say for example, attending Capitol Conference, attending our regional conferences, those types of things. And that's an accumulation of 150 points over 3 years. The A stands for aptitude. And if any of you want to challenge yourself, between the end of June and usually the beginning of July for about 2 to 3 weeks, there is a test that you can take on the OSBA website to test your aptitude as a school board member. And I always get a chuckle. Carol Ann did it this year. I twisted her arm. She said it had been a really long time since she'd taken a test. But what I love is the school board members write me and they yell, I passed, and I'm like, I'm not surprised you passed. So that's just a window of opportunity that's open for a few weeks a year from the end of June to the beginning of July, and I would encourage all of you to log on and take it. I think you'll surprise yourself. And then the R part of the STAR Award is a resolution. And the resolution is to recognize school board members' outstanding efforts on their local board. And since Carol Ann only had one more letter to go, I reached out to Al and I said, what do you think? And he partnered, and so tonight you will be receiving a resolution from your fellow board members, hopefully, and that will complete the STAR Award, which is another step to becoming a master board member.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. I am delighted to be here to see all this.
To see summer school is an amazing thing in itself. You need school in the summer.
True, true. So thank you so much for letting me come.
Thank you, Marty.
And
Thank
if
you.
any of you have any questions about any of this, I left my card. Please call me, reach out to me. I hope to see you at the Capitol Conference, if not our fall conference.
Yeah, Marty, thank you so much too for reaching out and you know, Carol kind of keeps some things to the vest, so I didn't know the aptitude part was as frequent as you know, it was in the last few weeks or whenever it was, not too long ago. So I was excited to hear that she met all the criteria, and tonight we'll finalize that. And I don't know if there's an actual award or not, but we will certainly publicize it that she received it. And
Well, we will present it at our fall conference in
Oh.
Astoria.
okay,
So.
well, that's good to know.
That's when she'll get her certificate.
Okay.
Her and everybody else
That
passed.
That passed, yes, good. All right, well, you're welcome to stick around until the resolution, and
Okay,
we
thank
appreciate you making the trek up
My
this summer.
pleasure.
Okay, public participation at board meetings. I have no cards. Jane?
I have none either.
Okay. Please be advised that this meeting is being audio taped and will be available on the district website. And we move to the treasurer's report, please, Mrs. Cruz.
Certainly. I have in your folder treasurer's report with some of the year-end reports, along with two of the housekeeping items that we're going to be approving tonight. And the housekeeping items and some of the financial reports have been put up into the website. I just wanted to point out some of the highlights of the final year end. And our revenues are very close to our estimates. We were within 0.4%, so that was well. But it was interesting to look at between fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. It actually was a 0% increase or decrease, so it's pretty flat. It's interesting what we made up for. We did have good real estate tax news in the sense that we had more personal, public utilities, which are fully taxable, but with the continued loss of revenue from the hold harmless funding, and we did have a slight decrease in our foundation. It kind of, it washed out, but that's still good. We weren't at a loss, so I'll take that. Our expenses, when I tend to look for expense side of things, if you flip the page, you'll see the expenses. I need to include the encumbrances because obviously the budget needs to have room for those. So it isn't as close as I've been in the past, so you can hear me being a little irritated with myself. But we were within, 7.4%, so it's not horrible, but it's just, I do think the two big factors in it were we did have a little higher ESSER deductions in salaries than I initially forecast or put in the 5-year forecast. So that's a good 300,000 of it. And then on fringe benefits, we have a renewal for insurance. It's always July 1. Unfortunately, once again, we had to change. We changed from Anthem to Cigna, which then created a new vendor, which of course does things differently. And I had put in my forecast the expectation, because it's how we've done it, that there would be 13 payments of insurance. Sure enough, we only had 12. So that's a good million of that. So I think that would have taken care of most of it. But just a heads up, it wasn't quite as close as in the past. That's good, okay. But I also have attached the very back of your report. I put the actual fiscal year 22, 23, forgive me, it's the time of year, I don't know what year I'm in. Fiscal year 22, 23, I put the actual numbers in the 5-year forecast. So this forecast had the House budget in it, which is pretty close, is pretty much what the Senate and the reconciling committee came back with. So we actually look pretty good. This is really good news when they settled on the House plan. There are things that are here and there that are, we aren't thrilled about, but you know what? It's better than the Senate version, so we take what we can get. So we're looking pretty good here, so just so you know, that's always nice to look like you're financially stable moving forward. So we'll update this in November, but this is good.
And this is slightly updated from the May.
Yeah, because I put actuals in.
Yeah, got it.
That's the difference, and I always have, the cash is always a little bit less than the budget because of the encumbrances. So this is based on cash flow, so it's nice, and it looks good. And it gives us some opportunities to talk about our future, you know. Just a real quick thing, I already mentioned the Reconciliation Committee did its job, and it went with the, the House's version. The one thing, and I don't want to, thank you for the legislature for what they've done. The one thing, I just want us to keep an eye on, whoever's on the legislation committee. I'm a little concerned because there was a little idea floating around to eliminate homestead and rollback, which is the tax credit homeowners get. It's a credit on their taxes and the state pays it, and the state was looking for ways to allow for lower taxes, and so they were looking at it. I just want us to be aware, they couldn't figure out a mechanism to get around 920, so that's the only reason they didn't proceed. But just keep your eye on it. They may not do it, but let's just keep our eye on it, because sometimes these things happen, they float things around, and all of a sudden, a couple of years, whoops, you know, so that's all I'm asking, because they've mentioned this at OASBO as well, so just keep an eye on it. So unless there are questions, that is my report. We're closed. It's just the normal year-end, hate to say stuff, but stuff. So,
Jane, I know Hal mentioned it in his little state budget items, what the requirement to accept cash. Like
yes.
Other event. So,
Okay.
obviously we have to have the,
we'll
now
have
the
one.
cash boxes out.
No, we need one place. There will be one location. We are not going back to that disaster. We will have one location. Sorry, I'm too close. We will have one location where we'll accept cash. If it were up to me, which obviously it's not completely up to me, but I would still do the same push we've been doing on have your tickets ahead, you know, send things out to the other districts, but we only have to have one place for cash. And we did go bend over backwards to help people go do things. You know, I don't know that we turned anyone truthfully away that we didn't work through or just say, oh, just.
When they say other school activities,
That means.
does that mean we have to like field trip stuff, payments, we still have?
No, we're talking about what the things that are attracting elderly people.
Okay.
We're talking about events. We are not talking about the fact that we are still.
Not school business?
No.
Any events, okay.
And I believe, and Joey can correct me, the Ohio High School Athletic Association is still challenging this, and I cannot believe the auditor state won't. I mean, this is really, it doesn't matter what I think, it's law, but it's something we need to,
Be very careful with.
we need to provide the opportunity,
Yeah.
but I don't think we go completely backwards, if I could say it that way.
And we'll have the procedures in place for the,
Yes.
like it's cash now, we have someone trained in it. And
Yes,
whoever's
we'll
gonna
do
be
it.
doing it.
Yep, I'm finishing up the extracurricular handbook, and we will make sure that's in, whoever handles that cash, it will be per standards. But honestly, I hope I'm wrong. I don't see us going clear backwards, because people were accepting it. Now, you always have people that don't like change, but gosh, we've been doing it 3, 4, I forget how many years.
Yeah, it's been probably coming up on 4 or 5.
Yeah,
And the thing with that too is, when you're talking about passes, so many people are still gonna purchase those passes online, it's so much easier, so you're talking about people few and far between with the cash, so.
I think so.
Like Jane, like Ms. Bruce said, I think we're not gonna go backwards, just providing one more option for those folks.
We'll be, like, I'll say, as a football, we'll be right there by the stadium, or will we have it more, send them somewhere in the school, they go and get it?
We haven't figured this out yet. I would almost prefer it be somewhere like even the door of the auto place or something like that, where it's separate from the normal flow, that we could direct people. That's neat, because we no longer have our little booths.
You still got some more details to work out.
Yeah, we don't have the details,
Okay.
but I do think we have to be careful, because we used to have those little buildings and you had the protection there. I mean, because we have had cash stolen, so this is something we need to be careful about. We'll
Okay.
figure it out.
Thank you.
So that
Well,
way-
for sure.
Yeah, Dean's on the radar. We've talked about, we haven't, I don't know, we were hoping it would happen. It's happened, we're moving forward, so.
Okay.
So that would include theater and those sorts
Yes,
of things, right?
Exactly, yes. Mhm. I don't think the Limelighters, it was all online, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
So we really have converted.
Could buy at the door for Limelight.
Okay, and that's all you have to do is allow it, so, very good, excuse me, yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the treasurer's report, please.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Zavisky,
Yes.
Mr. Savick,
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers,
Yes.
Mr. Shea,
Yes.
and Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. We will have an executive session at the end of the meeting. Is there any need for one now? Okay, we'll bypass that. Consent agenda. Are there any items that members of the board wish to pull from the regular meeting consent agenda? Hearing none, a motion is needed to vote on the consent agenda items, including the addendum.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Cathers,
Yes.
Mr. Savick,
Yes.
Mr. Shea,
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky,
Yes.
and Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Moving on to new business. Mr. Gregory.
You want me to read it? So this is the resolution that we were referring to earlier related to the R. So whereas Carol Ann Molnar, a board member of the Oregon City School District, has served the district with distinction, and whereas Mrs. Molnar has dedicated her time for the betterment of students and community, and whereas Mrs. Molnar has proven to be dedicated to the craft of board governance through her commitment to training, service, and governance skills, and whereas such measures have advanced student achievement in the district and improved the governance of the district, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Oregon City School District nominates Carol Ann Molnar for the for the Ohio School Boards Association Recognition Award. You want me to say? Is there, what do you say, is there a motion to approve?
So moved enthusiastically.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Savick?
Yes.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers?
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky?
Yes.
Are you going to abstain, Carol?
I will abstain.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Thank you. Honor and a pleasure. All right, item B, the handbooks. I need a motion to adopt the Student Athletic Parent Handbook, the Coaches Handbook, the Clay High School Band Handbook, and the Clay High School Student Handbook for the 23-24 high school season. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to these till late today, so I apologize for not sending them out, but glad Joey's here. So in the, I'll say the parent one, talk about on page 7, the fees paid prior to participation. It just kind of says that. I don't know if it needs more as far as what does participation mean? Is it practice? Is it games? And it doesn't really talk about any, say, consequences of discipline or as a result of not paying.
Yeah, so.
I think it alludes to some of it, but I don't think it blankly states you will not be able to participate when practice, August 1st, whatever that thing is. So I just wondered if there's any thought on that.
Yeah, so that section, obviously, the board's asking our department to really help in that collection of fees, not only athletic, but also school. So the section gives our department a little bit of a foundation to use to try to help, obviously, the district recoup those fees from those families. Our number one priority is to number one, try to work with those individuals to try to get those monies accounted for back into our hands. But then to also work with them on an individual basis, which is what most of the time we're doing, to try to get those monies.
So it gives you, like I said, gives you the footing to demand it and request it, but allows you the leeway to work with individually.
Correct.
Okay,
And that's really our basis is, as we all know, every individual family story is different and they all have different needs that we're trying our very best to meet as a school district. But like you said, it kind of gives us a little bit of flexibility, but also lays that groundwork for what's going to happen if it doesn't happen, or if there's no plan to
yeah.
get it paid.
Just in the movie, maybe next year just make a note, if we could add something that would just say, could result, failure to comply could result in non-participation until paid. It kind of lets them know that could happen, but it also leaves it open for other things to happen.
Absolutely, we can make a note of that.
Then I think in the coaches, is there a coaches one? Yeah, the coaches one, I think it's page 6, it does say, utilize Remind for team communication. Is that a requirement that they use that as the main, 'cause I know they use other sources.
Yeah, so obviously with technology changing all the time, most of our teams are using Remind right now. We do have a couple of teams that are pursuing, that obviously as time continues to elapse, more and more communication platforms are becoming available. Some better than Remind than others. Remind really is that one we've been using for quite some time because it kind of was at the foreground a couple of years ago. Most of our teams do use this. On a couple individual program basis, we have a couple coaches looking into some other communication options that they're working through our department to look at. I'm one of those people that if there's a better option out there, I'm not going to throw the blinders up and say, well, this is the one we're going to use. If there's a better option, we'll experiment and we'll try it out. A couple programs are using TeamSnap right now, so although the coach's handbook does say Remind, we do have a couple one-off programs that are utilizing a different platform under the direction of myself and our department.
So I know there's a lot of sharing in the other social media apps and stuff, which is, I know like volleyball does a lot of stuff on Facebook, but I don't know if it's communicated first on Remind and then they use that as a secondary, other, so I guess,
Absolutely.
other secondary options they still can use,
Yep.
but the first and foremost has to go up through Remind.
Yeah, well, really when we're talking about Remind, we're talking about any one-on-one communication platform, whether it be Remind or TeamSnap. Really keep that line of communication open, number one, with the parent, and number two, with the student, in a safe format so they're not utilizing one-on-one text or cell phone communication. I do know volleyball, for example, does have a communication platform. They are using Remind and then resharing a lot of that information on Facebook. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that our coaches are utilizing a one-on-one type of communication for those people who aren't on Twitter, who aren't on Facebook. But then obviously they can continue to communicate through social media if they so please.
Okay, thanks. And then page 7 talks about buses. Expectation is depart 20 minutes of scheduled time. Just seems kind of weird to even have something in there, they schedule time and they would leave as soon as possible unless there's something that stops them from doing that, which then they're probably working with you or Jim or Hal or someone anyway.
Absolutely.
It just seems like a weird thing to have in there.
This just came up the other day where that's kind of our baseline. We obviously communicate with our coaches. We just had a comprehensive head coaches meeting. We know that there's going to be some special circumstances. Let's say there's a large cross-country invitational that Coach Bose requests, hey, I know it says this is what time we'd like to get there, but because it's a big invitation, I'd like extra time to warm up. We're never going to tell them no. If the coaches know best, if they request more, additional time to warm up, we're going to definitely grant that to them. So that's just giving them a baseline understanding on if you don't say that you want more time, this is what you're going to get.
And there's one in that talks about the practices have to take place at designated OCS practice site, but really wasn't like an appendix that listed, the approved or authorized practice sites.
Yeah.
So that might be, an appendix in the next one to say what they are, that way
Yep,
they
absolutely.
can see. And then appendix O that talked about final form stuff was blank, at least in the version in the Google's Drive. On the final forms directions page was.
What page number, please?
That was the very end of appendix O, the very last thing, was blank, at least in what was in the Google Drive.
Appendix O.
Yeah, appendix O.
Page 51.
Page what number?
Page 51.
At the very last,
And coaches or students?
the coaches.
Yeah, it is blank in the one we must have received from you.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. Let me pull that up. committee answer that question at the end, while I pull that up here on the computer.
Like I said, just it's empty, so I assume there was either waiting for something to be updated, to be dropped in there, or just an oversight to make sure that we get that added.
Yep.
That's all the questions I had. I appreciate the answers and information, Joey.
No problem, anytime, thank you.
I had a couple, just two brief questions on the clay handbook, which first of all, whoever put the materials together, the summary page of changes, thank you, whoever did that. That was super, that was super helpful, so I super appreciate it. It's a big document to get through in a short period of time, so. There was, though, the removal of the district eligibility information, and I just wasn't sure if that was needed to go away or is covered somewhere else now. It seemed odd that we don't have an eligibility requirement, so I assumed I was missing something or we were mandated to get rid of it. I just wanted to understand.
At the time, that the red, I think you're referring to page 8.
Yes.
That, the weekly checks, we are going to go with the quarter eligibility of the 5 credits and 1.5 GPA. The weekly checks will still be done and given to the coaches as a courtesy,
Okay.
but we will not hold kids out from participating in games.
I see.
The athletic department did a study within the NLL, and we were the only one and maybe one other.
Yeah, we were definitely in the minority of doing the bi-weekly checks. There was one other, the only other NLL school that completed bi-weekly grade checks was Springfield. The rest of the NLL schools are going with the OHSAA's recommendation of eligibility, which is talking about strictly looking at grades in the preceding quarter, which our department is recommending through obviously the change in the handbook going in that direction. On top of looking at the preceding quarter, our department would still like to maintain the 1.5 eligibility GPA. So even though students could possibly be passing 5 courses, if they're not doing so with still maintaining the 1.5, they would be academically ineligible. So the only change to the eligibility standard is the bi-weekly grade checks with academic watch and things like that. That's the only change.
So they still have the eligibility from the previous quarter.
Got it. Okay, I'm seeing that now in the other sections. I was focusing on the changes perhaps too intimately, so thank you. And so you'll still give the coaches a heads up on those things just so they can kind of work with an athlete?
Struggling close to the eligibility.
Great, okay. And then the only other thing I think and again, this is just a clarity so I understand the question, I don't think I have a particular issue, is the public indecency. Did we have it before and we just changed the ramifications, or is this like a net new thing that we've decided to do for us? I'm looking for the page number.
21, I believe it is.
You're faster than me. And I don't need to know exactly how it changed necessarily, I was just curious, have we always had a public indecency
We've
violation?
always had one.
Okay,
I think we just cleaned up the language to make sure that we have the diversion hearing or expulsion.
okay, great. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Any further discussion or questions? Roll call?
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky?
Yes.
Mr. Savick?
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers?
Yes.
And Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item C, board approved training. I motion to approve the attendance of board members at all 2023 and 2024 OSBA conferences, allowing for the district to cover the registration fees, lodging, meals, and mileage as provided in board policy BHBA. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
I'll be a second.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion?
Quick question. Normally we do this by school year. So last time we did the 22-23 school year. This looks like it's expanding over multiple school years now, doing all 23 and 24 in total. I'm just curious as to the reason behind that, why it's not school year 23-24.
I think that's the intent, probably,
Yeah,
but
I believe that's the intent too, maybe
yeah,
just how
that's a
Carol
fair question,
worded it.
yeah.
Okay.
So we would have to do it again in the fall of 24.
Okay. So I just asked, I guess in the motion that it's
In
just
the
the
minutes
school
we
year
can note that,
23-24.
But then the new board takes in effect January, so, but
Yeah, this takes us through to the end of the school year, correct? 23,
that's the plan, it's just through June
Yes.
30th.
So I just like, I
And we
guess
even could change.
that
the-
comment just be added in the minutes that it
Yes.
covers the school year, not the calendar year.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? Roll call?
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mr. Savick?
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky?
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers?
Yes.
And Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item D, transportation contracts. We need a motion to enter into transportation contracts with the following for the 23-24 school year. The Hess family to the Toledo School for the Arts, the Raymond family to St. Rose School in Perrysburg. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Roll call?
Mr. Savick?
Yes.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers?
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky?
Yes.
And Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item E, policies. The following policies are being presented for their first reading. A recommendation for adoption will be made in August. And item F, we need a motion to approve a purchase agreement with the International Center for Leadership and Education for professional development and coaching for the 23-24 school year, not to exceed $150,000. It's paid for with Title I funds. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Discussion?
Hal, can you offer just a little background on what it is? Is it new? Is it something we've had before? Who's going to get the training?
Yeah, it's, so going into COVID, we had ICLE, this group, come to Clay High School, and they helped do an assessment of kind of our overall teaching and our overall kind of patterns with kids and those types of things. And then COVID hit, and we didn't get to this part, which was always kind of the plan. And Jen, please correct me if I say anything wrong here. So we did that same evaluation with Facet this past year. So now we want to bring in those folks that have some of this data and work with us. We really don't have, you know, the capacity within our own system to provide the intense coaching and interactions with teachers that we want. So I know Jennifer Coy has been working with ICLE and kind of talking back and forth about what services and they can provide for us. So we haven't nailed down the exact plan yet. That's why it's up to 150. We're not sure exactly. It's like an a la carte type of menu, and how much of this piece and that piece do we want to take advantage of. But we feel it would be very beneficial to continue to kickstart some of our goals from the strategic plan, and certainly 7 through 12 focused. It's 7 through 12 focused because we did a lot of this work ourselves with K6 many years ago, and we feel we're on the right track. So I don't know, anything else, Jennifer, that you'd like to add?
I don't want to begin at Jim, because I'm sure Jim's looking at me going, I heard Clay High School, we're starting with
Yeah.
Bassett first, because we just finished the instructional planning assessment, and then circling back to Clay as part of that conversation, because we did the assessment, and we started with some PD, and then it was COVID. I felt like there was really good traction there. So the implementation timeline allows for some overlap between Bassett and Clay with some professional development. So that's really where Clay will be included this year, but the bulk of the work will come with our leadership team. We will do some professional development with our leadership team in regards to what rigorous learning looks like, so they can give feedback when they're doing their OTES evaluations. Kind of like almost like a train-the-trainer kind of thing, because certainly we want the ICLE work to continue once they're gone, but also a bulk of their work this year will be rigorous curriculum design with 7 through 8. So all the work that we did with K6, where we prioritized the standards, we unpacked the standards, we talked about rigor, we developed units, we wrote assessments, we did all that work K6, and moving forward, I want to see that work continue 7-12. So we're ready to start the 7-8 work this year. And again, to try to do that, like Hal said, with the current staffing, we really do need to bring in some support in getting that work done in a timely fashion. And then after observing that work that's happened with 7-8, talking with the high school about how we can bring some of that work to them as well.
You both kind of alluded that we started it and then COVID hit. Was it a pay-as-you-go, or did we pay and not get all the services?
No, we didn't pay anything and not get services for it.
Okay.
We did this evaluation, and Mr. Jersky will remember where we had an individual come out and went into all the classrooms, or many of the classrooms, if not all the classrooms, and kind of gave us assessment, and that's where it ended.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Jen, when you say the leadership team, forgive me, because there's different teams, and I'm going to be
school
thinking
administrators, principals.
The administrators and principals. Okay, so we're not thinking
Maybe
the
some others.
educators directly, classroom educators would be.
That would be down the road.
Okay.
We'll start with our building administrators,
Okay.
and we'll include K-12 in that scope. It won't, that will not be narrowed to 7-12, because there's certainly a lot of things that our elementary and the ICE staff can learn from that.
Okay.
So we'll be including the entire staff, but then as that is going on, we need to build the units, so we will have specific teachers that we will be recruiting to do this work, and then the instructional coaching will come in upcoming years, because this is really a one-year plan of a multi-year vision.
Okay.
I look forward to doing additional instructional coaching, the curriculum design at the high school. That work will continue, but it will take us probably a good 3 years to get through that work. And then at the end of that cycle, I see us doing the instructional planning assessment again, so that we can look at the growth from when we did it, the first time, like pre-assessment, and then have the post-assessment after we complete the work.
So this 150 today that you're asking for the approval to kind of craft the specific plan on would be just for the building administrator component of that?
No, it's for the building administrator component as well as the curriculum design through 7-8.
Okay.
That's all included this school year.
Okay, great. And then thoughts on using a third party and this particular one versus another one versus like staffing to do it internal, which it sounds like some people do, but we're not set up for that. I mean, I know we're just dipping our toe in the water, so I'm not saying we need to jump in the deep end, but just maybe any thoughts on the different options there and why this one is the right fit for us now, this partner and an external partner versus other alternatives?
Well, one, we started the work back with the high school in 2019, so we'll be able to continue with that. But even previous to that, when we go back to when Lonnie was our superintendent, he kind of brought the idea of model schools and Bill Daggett to our district. And we have a large number of our staff that have gone to the Model Schools Conference. Bill Daggett has come to our district, spoken with our staff members. We've had other speakers from the International Center come in and speak with our staff. And one of the cornerstones of our curriculum is rigor and relevance. So it is something that's woven into what we do on a daily basis. So it only makes sense that we would continue that message and continue that work with this particular company.
Awesome. I'm asking questions mostly because I'm super excited. I think, as we've discussed in the academic committee meetings, to identify a set of sort of performance metrics that you start really digging into with folks and identifying areas for opportunity. If you do that without supplying the tools to help them fill those gaps, you're really not doing the full job. And I think that's exactly what this is designed to do. Is we've now identified our areas of opportunity. What skills do we need to refine, enhance, continue to grow to help give them the skills to step into that challenge? So my questions are out of just nothing but pure excitement for you. So thank you for.
And with the standards-based grading work that we did many years ago, we were working from the K-12 scope. So the hope has always been that we would continue this work not from a standards-based grading perspective, but a standards-based instructional perspective while auditing for rigor, that we would continue that work 7 through 12.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Do we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Savick.
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers.
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky.
Yes.
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item G, the Midwest Regional ESC agreements. We need a motion to approve agreements with Midwest Regional Educational Service Center for the 23-24 school year for visually impaired services provided to students in the Oregon City School District at the cost of $7,123 plus $900 for mileage. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Is there any discussion or questions? Roll call?
Mr. Savick.
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers.
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky.
Yes.
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item H, the event worker pay scale. We need a motion to approve a revised pay scale for Clay High School and Bassett Junior High School event workers. A copy of this pay scale has been distributed to the board. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or do we have any questions?
When would be the last time we would have updated this? Does anybody know? How often do we? It's the first time I've seen it, so I was just curious.
It's not annual. We haven't.
Maybe
updated it.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been quite
I
a
mean, I
while.
remember we did it.
Yeah, I wonder if
It's
when
been-
Mark got here or something.
It was prior to 2018. I know that for sure.
Okay, I was just curious, like, I mean, everything.
Let's
about
just say the amount of event workers who are taking advantage of working events is going way down.
Yeah, right.
So if the pay doesn't go up, we're not gonna have anybody to
Right.
work.
So what's the difference between an event worker and just like a volunteer? Like, I can only speak from volleyball, for example, and the parents are expected to do the line judging and the concessions and all of that. Like, I mean, I never got a paycheck, which I'm fine with, but I'm assuming that's a volunteer, so just help me appreciate the distinction
Yeah,
in
so
case I get
concessions
questions.
run a little bit different. Concessions is run by our athletic boosters club. Teams are kind of selected, teams kind of put their name in a hat to be selected to come in and work concessions. Concessions, each program that comes in and comes in and works is earning a 50% profit split. So 50% of the profits made for that night goes back directly into that team's fundraising account, to help them purchase things for their team. So that's kind of how concessions work. Line judges, not quite sure how it works, but we're not doing parent line judges this year. We're moving to a different direction.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of a league thing, that's not a Clay thing.
Well, thank you to the league then.
The league's doing a great thing there, I think we're gonna be pretty excited about that. But an event worker is somebody who kind of has a task that needs to be done for the game, obviously, to go on. Somebody who's scanning in tickets or selling tickets, somebody who's working the scoreboard, announcing. Those key functions of the game are event workers.
Okay, thank you. Never knew the difference.
Not a problem.
And thank you to the league.
Yes,
Because
I-
apparently I'm
I
a
was-
terrible line judge.
I was excited about that as well.
I've been overridden by, I think it's Linda.
Couple
She-
times.
Yeah, she's like, no, it was it. And I was like, "Well, I could just leave and go watch the game if you've got it covered from there." So anyway, just a personal aside for what it's worth.
Any further discussion or do we have any questions? May we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Zavisky.
Yes.
Mr. Savick.
Yes.
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers.
Yes.
Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Item I, disposal of equipment and materials. The items listed in the June 20th, 2023 agenda for disposal have been disposed of in accordance with board policy. And moving to the superintendent's report.
Hey, Hal, before you get started, did you do this fancy little non-staple connection thing, or is that,
You guys did. You approved the new
New copy
this is
machine.
part of the copy thing?
contract.
That's nice.
I had that under old business, I was gonna
Or Wes
say.
and Dean, I really had nothing to do with it. But tonight's the
Does
first time I've
Jane
seen
not
it.
have access? What What did we do?
I didn't know
Limit
about
Jane's
it until, I didn't know about it.
Jane did it on her own, I asked Carol to do it, there's the difference.
I didn't know about it. Now that I know about it, I will use it. Sorry about that.
I thought they were hiding things from you, Jane.
No, I wasted 6 staples, I'm sorry.
We gotta use them up, they're already
Put it
paid
in
for.
the budget.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I know.
They're already paid for. Quick report, things are, are calm and good right now. A beautiful day today, and you can see on my first one there, it was neat to see the kids out painting their senior spots. So that kind of always is the first signal that it's still going on. School's gonna happen. So school happens in a month, literally about a month from now. So just like that, we're back at it, and we'll be rolling here in a couple of weeks. So, football's been rolling, but July was packed, or I'm sorry, June was packed with things too. So summer's never ending, really, with what goes on with our kids. But 1 month, so everybody, you got 1 month. Jane talked a lot about the budget process. So I just gave you some information if you hadn't, reviewed or seen anything, just a quick summary piece that I had. And with the Lucas County breakdown of the anticipated, so take that for what it is. And I agree with Jane. I think we got the best of the fair funding side of the budget bill, but there's still many cons to the whole thing, related to vouchers and some things that as a public school I still think are questionable. But again, it's a give and take, obviously, and at least the piece that affected us the most right now was positive, so appreciate that. Just want to give a shout out. I guess we have a strong partnership with the Oregon Community Theater, and you all know that. You've been a part of that for a long time, but went to the show Matilda Jr. the other day on Sunday, their finale, and first of all, it was the most attended show they've ever had across the 4 days. I don't know if anyone else had the opportunity to go, but they were just about sold out every single day at Facet. They weren't sold out every day, but they were just about sold out every day, and I know on Sunday they were packed to the back. And so I want to give a shout out to Beth Giller, and she's the director, and a big part of volunteering and had kids go through the school, and a local minister, and her daughter Anna was a part of that as the assistant, and then one of our teachers, Lisa Kessler, I think I put the wrong spelling in there, Lessler, but I meant Kessler, who was the producer, and they just had to wrangle and work with over 100 plus kids and have basically 2 shows. They had 2 shows with 2 groups of kids. Just imagine essentially teaching 2 groups of kids something this intense, and the talent pool moving through from little kids up is amazing. Now, they weren't all Oregon kids, but many of them were. So just very proud of it. I was very proud to be a part of that, and just to see, and Facets, they praise me, they praise us every time I go to one of those shows for the support we give them as a school district and as a Board of Education. So I just want to give a shout out to that organization and congratulate them on a great show. And just give another shout out to all these people that are working on these hot days to get things done. Our maintenance crew, custodial crew, our technology technicians that are back, and all our school leaders that are in and out even though they're off, and certainly all the contractors that are coming about, and Dean for coordinating it, and Jeff. There's just so many moving parts that need to come together, and they just always do. You don't really see it, but all of a sudden it's there and done, and you can see by all the stuff out in the yard. So thank you to all those folks. And really, we're back at it. Just a few more weeks. Once August 1st hits, it's full time every day, all day. So we do need to, and maybe Carol, you have this in your notes, but just talk about maybe a date too for a work session in August when you get that down there. So and that's everything I have. Unless there's questions about something specific. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any old business? All right, board committee reports. These are getting thinner and thinner. It sounds like we're not doing them, but we're taking care of most of it in work sessions. So the public knows that we are really working in committees. So finance?
Nope, nothing to report.
Capital improvements?
No.
Policy personnel, yes, we have these new policies. And we will be having a
Yeah,
policy
thank you.
review with Kenna Haycox from OSBA. She's going to go through our policy book with us, make sure we're up to date. That's coming up starting next week.
Yep, it's Tuesday.
Okay, academic?
We have quite a few children within the district who are participating in summer school programming this year. 148 students total at Clay High School, 19 at Fassett, 28 at Eisenhower, and a total of 134 divided between our elementary schools.
Okay, thank you. Legislative liaison?
Just what we had that Jane provided us and how, what's going on and what we need to look for.
Okay, thank you. Student achievement liaison?
No report.
Okay. Board discussion, I need to appoint delegate and alternate. Dan, would you please be our delegate for OSBA conference?
Yes, I will.
And Mike, will you be the alternate, please?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Executive session, we will go into executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official. And we will not conduct any business, but we will dismiss from the executive session. I have a work session down is coming up August 1st, I believe. Meeting is August 15th. August 1st, is that right?
That's the first Tuesday of the month. So we haven't,
Shoot,
We-
well, there's a conference on the budget that day in Columbus. I can change it. Okay, it's okay, I'll change it to something.
Well,
Well-
it may not work for somebody else too.
No, just,
We can do it without you.
you're right, do without me.
Or we can move it.
I'm open to moving it, it doesn't matter to me.
Do we think we're going to have content to which Jane is?
Is
I
necessary to be
think
there.
my thought, it's gonna be a lot of strategic planning and talking about kind of moving forward,
Okay,
the stuff
so
that's
not
on
as
mine,
germane.
not as much
Okay,
of
then it's-
finance. Jane gave a good thorough report, on that, but I certainly don't wanna. So let's keep it on the first then, and we'll have it at
5:30?
whatever time we did, 5 or 5:30, whatever it was, 5:30. Same place?
That works for everybody, 5:30.
5:30.
Probably be 5 minutes late, but yes, 5:30
That's
is
all right.
great.
You're
5:35.
you're consistent.
I just can't get those 5 minutes back.
Yeah, it works. Okay. And then the next meeting is August 15th. So may I have a motion to enter into executive session, please?
So moved.
A second? I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Savick.
Yes.
Mrs. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky.
Yeah.
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Mrs. Cathers.
Yes.